UFC 300 was hyped as one of the greatest cards of all time. And frankly, it delivered. We had two of the best finishes I have ever seen in my entire life. Almost everybody showed up and fought their asses off. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to recap the entire UFC 300 fight card. We opened up the card with a couple of weight class changes. We had Deiveson Figueiredo moving up 10 pounds to fight former champion Cody Garbrandt. I thought Cody was going to be able to defend the takedowns, be a little bit too big, and be the cleaner striker. And frankly, the first round was pretty uneventful, but that's what that first round looked like. When Cody threw, it was fast and clean. He defended a couple of early half-assed takedown attempts, and I think he won that first round. Relatively inactive, but Cody won that first round. Second round, defends a few more takedowns, eventually gets taken down, and then did nothing. Had nothing to offer. It is shocking that somebody as experienced as Cody Garbrandt, somebody with the level of success that that man has attained in this sport, cannot offer any sort of defense on the ground. He was quickly mounted, quickly controlled. He tried to explode out. His back was taken, and he was submitted. So the question now is, how good is Figgy at 135 pounds? Was this taking advantage of two relatively one-dimensional strikers in a row? Or is Figgy the real deal at this weight class? He beat Rob Font with a whole bunch of takedowns, and he beat Cody Garbrandt as well with slick jiu-jitsu. Personally, I think he might actually be good at 135 pounds. All of a sudden, Deiveson Figueiredo is having more success wrestling and grappling up a weight class than he did at his previous weight class where he was champion. He didn't wrestle that often as champion, and now he is working in takedowns, and he is controlling people. You would think giving up the weight and being the smaller person would be an issue for him, but it really hasn't been. And you can't even call it speed. Typically, you move up in weight, you have a speed advantage. We saw that in the Max Holloway fight. But that's not what we have here. So I think the weight cut was dramatically affecting Deiveson Figueiredo's mindset, Deiveson Figueiredo's fatigue, Deiveson Figueiredo's strength, and all of a sudden he doesn't have to worry about cutting weight. He can be more natural. He can keep that weight on. He can keep the power, keep whatever speed he has, and he's making it work. So Deiveson Figueiredo, 135 pounds, might actually be pretty good. He just beat a former world champion. I'm curious who they give him next and if he could work his way up the ladder and put some new life into this division. And then we had an all-timer. And the fight wasn't wildly fantastic or anything like that. And when I say all-timer, I'm talking about Jim Miller, famously fought at UFC 100, UFC 200, and now UFC 300. But it was very clear that he was a step behind, a little too slow, a little too old, and those takedowns aren't going to work on Bobby Green. And Bobby Green's no spring chicken. He's 37 years old, but he's not 40. And he's not slow. He never has been, and I don't know if he ever will be. He had that long step-in jab. That is what you see here in this picture. That long step-in jab was landing every single time he threw it, and Jim Miller wore it. But Jim Miller is a warrior. So what does Jim Miller do? He continues to march forward. He continues to try to win the fight. At no point did Jim Miller not try to win this fight. Up until the last bell, Jim Miller was trying to make something happen. Bobby Green looked great. He looked absolutely fantastic. The takedown defense was there, but there wasn't much in the realm of takedowns attempted anyway. And that long jab, the good straight right, all of that was there for him, and it was all landing. Jim Miller coming forward, ducking his head, throwing bombs, but it didn't connect. It didn't work. Bobby Green, at this point in his career, will probably continue to just beat up these aging vets, continue to beat up the other names in the division, because for an older guy himself, he's still fast, he's still accurate, and he's still one of the better people in the division, even though these young killers, and I'm about to call Jalin Turner a killer, but we saw what happened in that fight. We'll talk about that in a minute. But these young killers are getting the best of Bobby, but Bobby's going to continue to get the best of anybody that is within a couple years of his age. Either way, great fight. Jim Miller should probably start to consider retirement. This wasn't really a fight where he got the brakes beat off of him and he looked old as hell, but it also is not a fight that's going to set him up for success. He is 3-2 in his last 5 at this point. They should give him, they did him a favor putting him on UFC 300. Let's give him somebody that he can beat on his way out, right? Let's give him somebody that also is a little bit older, should be considering retirement. Put that together. Give him an actual goodbye fight. If the Jersey UFC, if the Newark UFC wasn't so close, that would be a great swan song for Jim Miller. And I think he's earned it. Bobby Green has some life left, so I'm curious to see who they'll give him. I think they should avoid doing what they do. We know what the UFC does. They said, here's a young killer prospect, and you can go beat the hell out of a fan favorite, and that's how we're going to build you up. Hopefully they don't do that to Bobby. Bobby's losses are not to young, new people we haven't heard of. He lost to Drew Dober. He lost to Jalin Turner. People who have been here for a little bit. Let's continue that path. Let's continue to give Bobby people we know and not these Contender Series killers that you are trying to build up. And then we had a very typical Jessica Andrade fight. This fight was a little frustrating to watch because it was a typical Jessica Andrade fight. She was not the better fighter. She was not the more skilled fighter. The first round was a little weird. Marina was having success with the striking. She was staying long. She was staying at range. She was landing when she needed to land. And then she threw a kick and fell down. Just kicked too high and fell down. And when she fell down, she didn't get back up. All the control in the world. That is where Jessica is tough. She's heavy. She's strong. Jessica held her there, beat her up a little bit. And even if they do work back to their feet, it was very clear Jessica was in control of those type situations. Then we get the second round, the third round, and it's really just Jessica charging forward and throwing bombs. The technique wasn't super clean. It did look better than usual, but it's not clean. It's just big power while charging forward. But I blame Marina. Jessica fought the way Jessica fights. Anybody that has done 30 seconds worth of tape study knows that was a Jessica Andrade fight. Not more technical, but very tough. Will move forward and try to win this fight. Marina is the one who wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. Be fast, be technical, stay on the outside, do not get close enough to be bullied. And she didn't follow those rules. She got bullied and she lost this fight. The arm raising, and this they do teach you that in the gym, especially the older school Brazilian fighters. Raise your arms after every round. Raise your arms after every round. They teach you that, right? These are just little subtle mind games, and maybe a judge sees that and they go, I think she won. She had her hands up. But the fact that Marina was sitting there like, did I win this decision? I think I won. Come on, what are we doing? You did not win that decision. You barely did anything at all. Jessica Andrade earned that win, deserves that win. And the fact that she can go in there less skilled than her opponents, but get the wins because of toughness, because of grit, because of forward pressure is impressive. Good for Jessica Andrade. Good for her. She's working with what she has. She doesn't have natural talent, but what she does have is some natural guts and grit. And she got it done. So good for her. 2 wins in a row after an unfortunate skid where a lot of people were writing her off. I am curious to see what they do for her next. I hope she stays at this weight class and give her, I don't even know. I can't think of a name right now, but let's give her somebody a little bit younger than Marina Rodriguez. Somebody that could potentially make a run in this division. Not a wrestler, though, because Jessica gets taken down. Jessica gets held down. Give her another striker. Give her somebody that will give her an actual good fight so we can see, is Jessica ever going to earn this title again? Or was that sort of a flash in the pan and she's just going to be the gatekeeper for this weight class? Then we had a spectacular fight. Jalin Turner knocked out Renato Moicano at the end of the first round. Jalin Turner got taken down in that first round, but he was able to work his way back to his feet where he landed a very clean strike, put Renato Moicano on his ass, and had a walk-off finish. Jalin Turner walked away, a walk-off finish at UFC 300 to earn $300,000. I just want to say congratulations to Jalin Turner. Congratulations to the safety parlay because he was in it, and it was very clear at this moment in time, this screenshot that you see here, that Jalin Turner had won this fight. Except he didn't. He walked off like an idiot. And then what happened? Jalin Turner, who's never won a decision in his entire life. Jalin Turner, who apparently has cardio issues. Jalin Turner walked off. Look at the ref. Hey, why didn't you stop this fight? Well, I didn't stop the fight because Renato Moicano stood back up within 3 seconds. You would think that they would go back to the corner. Hey, you can connect. You got to throw. You can connect. You saw what you just did to him. No. They come back in the next round, and all of a sudden, Jalin Turner's tentative. A little defeated, if you will. He was almost defeated before he got taken down again. Jalin Turner's takedown defense did not look very good. Taken down again, and then he just did not get back up. The elbows were raining down. The punches were raining down from Moicano, and I understand that's probably a pretty shit position to be in. I get it. But it is your job. It's literally your job to go out there and fight the best of your abilities. We just broke down Jessica Andrade, who's not skilled. At least not as skilled as her opponents, who guts her way through wins. We just talked about Jim Miller, who was slower, older, weaker, not the better striker, gut his way forward. Did he win? No. But did he gut his way forward? Yes. Did Jalin Turner gut his way forward? No. Jalin Turner got mounted, didn't like it, so he turned his head. And we all know what that means when you're on the ground. You turn your head, a couple of strikes come, the ref stops it, and you go, oh. Jalin Turner officially has a quit button. We saw it. He pressed it. Jalin Turner quit in that fight, and once you quit once, you will quit again. And it's insanely disappointing because he is such a phenomenal striker. And that first round, getting taken down, getting controlled, but still landing that big punch, and he would have finished Moicano if he just followed him to the ground. If you just followed Moicano to the ground and landed a few more strikes, this fight is over. But instead, you wanted to be the cool guy. You wanted the 300, you wanted to be the flashy guy, and you got nothing. In fact, you probably gave Moicano $300,000 because his comeback was spectacular. You walking away after dropping somebody was not. And it's unfortunate, and it's a decision you're going to regret the rest of your life, and I get it. I already saw all the nasty comments on Twitter and Instagram, and those aren't fair because you did go out there, you did drop this guy, and you made a split-second decision that was stupid. The bigger issue is not the walking away. While that is ridiculous, that's not the bigger. The bigger issue is that when it got tough later, he quit. That is the bigger issue. He was fully mounted, turned his head, and quit. That, to me, is the bigger issue. There are how many hundreds of fighters on this roster? And how many hundreds of them would just never quit? I'm not going to stop. I'm going to lose, but I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to turn my head, turn my hips, and just knowingly let this referee come in and stop it. So that was the most disappointing part to me for Jalin Turner. Yeah, bonehead decision to not follow Renato Moicano to the ground. Bonehead decision. But to later in that fight, in the next round, to just give up after the success you had in the first round. In the first round, you got taken down, you stood up, and then you dropped his ass. In the second round, you got taken down, rolled over, and got finished. And that is just brutal, brutal to watch. But we did have a real deal. We did have somebody who was all hammer. We don't know if she's a nail or not because all she did was come forward, get takedowns, and beat up. Come forward, get takedowns, and beat up. And that's what was supposed to happen in this fight. And I understood the early concerns for Kayla Harrison's weight. I get it. She competed in the Olympics at 170 pounds. She competed in the PFL at their lowest weight at 150 pounds. This was 15 pounds lighter than the lightest she's ever been. But the minute she showed up to that press conference with a smile on her face the day before weigh-ins, the minute she made weight, we knew she's ready. She didn't look good. She did not look great at weigh-ins, but she is a professional, and she was ready, and she showed up, and we don't know what the cardio would have looked like if this went a full 15 minutes because it didn't go a full 15 minutes. She did exactly what a hyped prospect should do. She came forward, got the takedowns, imposed her will, and beat one of the most accomplished women in this division. Kayla Harrison, I believe, is the real deal. She is proven. She's not a Bo Nickal. We'll talk about Bo Nickal. She is proven. She has plenty of MMA fights with plenty of success. And yes, it was outside of the UFC, but she's in the UFC now. And she beat one of the better women in the division. Yeah, an old woman, a 42-year-old. But she still beat her, and she beat her the way that you would expect her to. She beat her in a way that she was supposed to. She was the two-time Olympic gold medalist, and she used those skills to win this fight. Kayla Harrison is a real deal. I hope she gets a quick turnaround. I hope she gets some money behind her because I think that she can be a star. She can be the Ronda Rousey 2.0. And she does have one loss on her record, a blemish, but that was against the woman she had already beaten 2 times. At the end of a contract for a promotion she didn't want to continue fighting for. So I don't think that that loss is that big of a deal because she came here, she was ready, rejuvenated, looked good, made the weight, and got it done. I think Kayla Harrison is absolutely the real deal. And Aljamain Sterling might be the real deal at 145 pounds. We had Aljamain Sterling, who had missed 60 some odd takedowns in his last couple of fights. 60 something takedowns. He couldn't take down anybody. And that's an exaggeration, of course, but he struggled taking people down. He had an incredibly low 23% takedown accuracy. But not in this fight. All of a sudden, Aljamain Sterling is like 5 for 8 in takedown attempts. Aljamain Sterling has nice takedowns, good control. We always had the good control. We knew that was there. But the takedowns weren't there before. And it's very similar to the Figueiredo breakdown. We have a guy going up in weight. He's giving up weight. He's giving up size. It was clear that Calvin Kattar, I really fumbled the bag there. I wanted to say Kattar, and then you guys yell at me when I want to say Kattar, and you guys yell at me, so I was going to say Kattar. Calvin, it was very clear Calvin was the bigger fighter. You saw it at the weigh-ins. You saw it at the face-offs. But it didn't matter. All of a sudden, Aljamain's takedowns looked better. And maybe it was the speed. When you move up in weight, you're typically the faster fighter. But he didn't look particularly fast. I think we had two things going for us here. One, Aljamain Sterling has been grinding. He's been working. He is a hard worker. Aljamain Sterling is certainly improving, and I think not cutting weight is helping him. The second thing is the long layoffs aren't good for strikers. All 3 strikers on this card that had long layoffs lost. Rakic lost, Kattar lost, and Jamal Hill lost. All 3 strikers with long layoffs lost their fights. So I think this is a perfect combination of a long layoff because strikers tend to struggle with finding their timing, combined with the fact that Aljamain Sterling is with Merab every day. Aljamain Sterling is grinding, is improving, is trying to be better. And we saw those results. So I think we need to see a little bit more to determine how good he is or is not at 145 pounds. Let's give him somebody who isn't coming off of a major injury and a year and a half away. But for tonight at UFC 300, Aljamain Sterling looked absolutely fantastic, and he deserved every minute of that win, especially this poor guy was the 135-pound champion, the most decorated 135-pound champion the UFC has ever had. And he lost his belt to somebody the UFC loves for some reason, and then the UFC just started dicking him around. No rematch to the longest reigning champion ever. No rematch. Playing games with who, you have to fight your best friend or don't fight at all. So it was nice to see that Aljamain, against the odds, against the company that hates his guts, was able to come out here and get a win. So congratulations to him. Good for him. The fact that he came out here, got the takedowns, improved as quickly as he did, and got this win, it's spectacular. Big to Dana White and the UFC that just don't like Aljamain Sterling for whatever reason. And then here's the second of the long layoff fighters on the card. Aleksandar Rakic got smoked. But he was doing the smoking early on. He was lighting up Jiri's leg. You can see it in the picture. You can see his right leg is pretty red. Jiri's leg movement was limited. His leg got absolutely chopped up. His movement started to get odd. He was getting beat. He was getting beat to the punch. He was clearly not the more technical fighter in this fight. He's a giant Jessica Andrade. He is almost never the more technical fighter in a fight. He's not technical at all. He comes forward like an absolute lunatic and just walks through whatever you send at him, Terminator style, and then finds your head. Aleksandar Rakic had very good early success. He was clean. He was landing well. He was doing damage. He was beating up Jiri Prochazka. And then Jiri landed one nice punch. And you could just see everything changed for both of these fighters. Everything changed. Jiri just kept coming forward, kept looking for those strikes, eventually found them, eventually got it to the ground, and then got the Jalin Turner finish. Rakic turns his head, fight's over. But a lot of this has to do with that layoff. And in this case, it was a little different because Rakic had early success. He had his timing early. What he didn't have, though, was a war. And without being in those wars, without having a war under your belt recently, you're going to find out a lot about yourself, and he found out that he wasn't ready for a war because that's what Jiri Prochazka does. He brings war with him. And unless you're Alex Pereira, who can put him out cold, you will be in a war. And that's what he did. Jiri Prochazka, I have grossly underestimated his skills for a while, and maybe that's the wrong term because, I don't know, is he skilled? Are his actual techniques clean and proper? No. but he is all heart, all determination. He will come forward, he will stay in your face, and he will never quit. And it doesn't matter what damage you do to him. As long as he is still awake, he will come forward. If he can control it, he will do it. Jiri Prochazka, I mean, we're not ready for the Alex Pereira rematch just yet, but I do want to see him fight a couple of other guys and just see how good he actually is. Or is it, okay, you beat a couple of people that weren't great, lost to the champion, and now you just beat a guy coming off a 2-year layoff? And that's how I would feel if he knocked out Rakic instantly, but he got through adversity, and Rakic looked good early. And now we have to discuss if Bo Nickal is a fraud or not. Spoiler alert, I don't think he's a fraud. I think this was a perfect fight for everybody. I think Cody Brundage got a lot of credit out of this fight. I think people watch this fight and they're like, you know what, Cody's good. Because Cody deserves people's respect. He's been a butt of a few jokes the last few years because of the way that he got that Jacob Malkoun win, a couple of other wins where he was doing well early and then not so well, and just weird circumstances around some of his fights. But he got a lot of love this week. Some of that is because people hate Bo Nickal, and other of that is that people looked at those odds and were like, listen, Cody Brundage might not be a decision fighter, but that dude has power and he has wrestling. And we saw both of those things. He had Bo Nickal rocked a few times, and not like stanky leg might fall down rocked, but he definitely connected, and Bo did not like it. He also defended a handful of takedowns and had a few really nice scrambles against one of the most accomplished wrestlers in the UFC right now. So that's the praise for Brundage. I am going to praise Bo Nickal because you don't know how good somebody is or is not until they get through a little bit of adversity. And this wasn't a ton of adversity. He ended up getting the finish in the second round. I wish it was a little earlier so that under 1.5 would hit. But he still worked his way through a little bit of adversity. He got hit more than once, harder than he had ever been hit before. He attempted takedowns that he did not get. He ended up in scrambles that he did not like. And he continued to come forward, continued to push, and then ended up on top. Yes, some of that is Cody Brundage. Other of that is the fact that he's a gamer. Bo Nickal is a gamer. You don't accomplish what he has accomplished in the sport of wrestling without being a gamer. Couple of takeaways. He is not experienced enough to push the shit out of. Khamzat Chimaev beats Bo Nickal's ass right now. They fight right now. He beats his ass. He just does. He just does. And I hate to say that because I am a Bo Nickal believer. I do believe Bo can be the next big thing. And I think we need him to. The UFC needs stars, right? That's how this sport stays alive, is they build a star and they can ride that star's back for a few years and then they build another one and that cycle continues. I think Bo Nickal can be a star, but it's a little too early. If they continue to rush him, if they see, oh, Bo Nickal, second round stoppage for his 6th fight, 6 fights, 6 stoppages, and then they give him somebody super tough, it may not go well because while he is an accomplished wrestler, and we see that on the mat itself, his takedowns are not that clean. If you have good scramble skills and decent takedown defense, you can keep these fights standing. And then if you're like a Cody Brundage, where you're going to let your hands go, you could connect and you could have some success. So I honestly think both of these men leave that octagon better than they went in. Cody Brundage getting a lot more respect and a lot of accolades that he has deserved for a little bit while. For a little bit while. It is 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm saying things like little bit while. But he's getting the credit that he's deserved. Bo Nickal got his way through some adversity. Bo Nickal fought an actual fight against somebody who's been in that octagon 9 times. And he won that fight. And he worked his way through some tough spots. And then in the post-fight speech, he was a human being. He wasn't a cocky asshole. He was a human being that acknowledged where his skills are and reached out to the people. I think both of these guys left that fight like good for them. We like them both a little bit more right now. So happy for both of them. I hope Cody Brundage obviously didn't get paid any public money there, but I do hope they give him a little bit of money behind the scenes. And as we all know, Dana White does have those locker room bonuses. I hope Cody Brundage gets himself a locker room bonus for just going out there and laying it out there and trying to be better than the plus 1,000 underdog that they had him as. And then we had the only controversial decision on the card, I would say. And frankly, I think they got it right. But you guys know, you tell me all the time, I favor wrestlers. I tend to lean towards wrestlers in decisions. You always tell me when I say it was a bad decision that I'm wrong, I'm an idiot, wrestling doesn't matter. Well, finally, the wrestling did matter, and I'll take it. And I think a couple of things happened here. For the same people that say wrestling doesn't matter, damage is the only thing that matters. Well, the only damage was on the Charles Oliveira side. Charles Oliveira's face is the one that got split open. He was the one that was a bloody mess. He was the one whose white hair turned pink. So if we're only scoring damage and wrestling doesn't matter, you still kind of have to score it for Arman. Once you factor in there was two close submission attempts, that's when it gets dicey. Because that first round, the first half of the first round, Arman Tsarukyan was in a very tight guillotine. That did not look like it was going to go his way. It looked like he was going to get submitted. And at first, the first camera angle, it looked like a slip, but it wasn't a slip. He threw out a kick and he left it up there a little too long. And then Charles Oliveira blasted the other leg, sent him to the ground, and immediately pounced on a guillotine. A couple of cool things happened in that fight, though. While Arman Tsarukyan was in that guillotine, he hung tough. We watched that dude go to death's door. I thought he was going to pass out, and he didn't. He somehow worked his way through that, ended up on top, and then Charles Oliveira kicks him in the face from bottom. That is illegal, because even though Arman is on top, he is still a grounded opponent. You can't kick a grounded opponent in the face. But he didn't even know or care. He got kicked in the face. It didn't even matter. The referee stopped it. Arman's like, what? I'm fine. What are we doing? Why are you stopping? Let's fight. What are we doing here? And then the doctor came in, and the doctor was looking at Arman running through vigorous tests. It was insane. That doctor put weight. Arman was 100% fine. It was obvious to everybody. And that doctor was shaking him, trying to see if he'll stand, doing all sorts of weirdo stuff, trying to be the star of the show. Thankfully, nothing weird happened. We didn't have a Johnny Walker in the middle of the desert type situation here, and the fight continued. We ended up with a pretty dominant second round, and then a third round that looked like the first but reversed. As we know, judges tend to only remember what happens at the end of a round. Because if you look at the first round of this fight objectively, you would look at it and say, well, only one of these fighters was close to winning by finish, and that was Charles Oliveira. It was too early in the round. I'm a judge. I forget everything that happened. I'm only going to remember the end. And at the end, Arman finished very, very strong. So that's his round. Second round. That was a very clear Arman round in the second. And I thought the second round is how the whole fight was going to be. Very clear Arman round. Third round, a little bit of a reverse. Arman had success early, a little bit of trouble late, but finished strong with a couple seconds. And that's what the judges remember. Again, I think the judges got it right. Not only did Arman dominate with the wrestling when they wrestled, he also did the only damage in the fight. He did. So yes, Charles Oliveira was close to squeezing his neck on 2 occasions, but he didn't squeeze his neck. And you tell me, what counts more? Almost choking somebody out or actually splitting their face wide open? Which one matters more? And that's a real question. So let me know in the comment section. But I do think they got that fight right. But that wasn't the only fight that Arman Tsarukyan was in that night. I'm about to show you a clip of Arman Tsarukyan walking to the cage. This isn't after. This is before. And we're going to watch Arman Tsarukyan punch somebody in the audience. So you're going to see him right here. This is Arman Tsarukyan shaking hand. Boom! Punch him in the face. Walking to the cage. Boom! Punch him in the face. I have no idea what that was about. I don't know what caused it. I know nothing other than Arman Tsarukyan walking into the octagon, into the arena. This large gentleman behind him, his only job is to make sure that the fighters don't get effed with by the fans. And he wasn't there because somebody messed with Arman. I'm thinking, if we watch this again, what it looks like happened is somebody grabbed his arm. He shook hands, he went to shake, and somebody held it and pulled onto it, and then Arman just, boom, went over the top and punched him. That has to mess with you. It has to throw you off. It has to mess with you a little bit. But he shook it off. He went out there. So Arman 2-0 at UFC 300. And this gentleman right here, this person that is gnawing on his own knee, is Justin Gaethje. This is the human highlight reel. And he went out there and he fought like the human highlight reel. He was slower. He was a step behind. He was getting pieced up a little bit. His nose was broken in the first round. And then he fought another 24 minutes. Well, no, not another. He fought another 20 minutes. He fought another 20 minutes after his nose was broken. And he kept moving forward. He kept throwing big bombs. He kept trying to make something happen. At one point, he even dropped Max Holloway, who I don't think had ever been dropped before. Justin Gaethje lived up to the name, but this is what ended up happening to Justin Gaethje with only 2 seconds left. Max Holloway was on his way to win a very clear decision. Max Holloway was going to win a 5-0 or 4-1 decision. Whatever it was going to be very clear. Max Holloway won that fight. He was faster, he was cleaner, he was sharper, he landed the more meaningful shots. The narrative going into this fight was, hey, Max might have the volume, but Justin's going to do the damage. That's not what we saw. Max had the volume and did the damage. He did all the damage. Any damage in this fight was on the other side. Max Holloway dominated this fight start to finish. He did get dropped in one of the wild exchanges, but it was an instantaneous hit the mat, came right back up type dropping. But even though Max Holloway was literally 14 seconds away from winning a very clear decision, he still looked at Justin Gaethje. He still pointed to the floor and said, let's go. And then they both swung wild, and Max Holloway landed that death blow that folded up Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje got cracked, immediately just collapsed, and it was a wild sight. It might be the most spectacular finish we have ever seen. The circumstances around it are wild. A 145-pounder moving up to 155 pounds to fight the most dangerous guy at that weight class was about to win a decision. Zero reason to take any risk whatsoever. Zero reason to put himself in harm's way. Only had something to lose. Decided to point at the floor, put himself in harm's way, and say, let's go. Doing that only gave Justin the opportunity to maybe win this fight. And that's not what happened. He doubled down, knocked him out cold, and absolutely reminded everybody why Max Holloway is a fan favorite. I watched that fight and I was like, how the hell did this guy lose to Alexander Volkanovski? Made no sense. He also lost to Dustin Poirier, so it's not a weight thing. It's not a, well, he looks great at 55, he should stay there, because he's been at 55 before. I think Max Holloway, first of all, is only 31 years old. I think Max Holloway is continuing to improve. He's finding himself. He's more comfortable with himself now than he has ever been. He was Jacob's underdog lock of the week, and I texted Jacob immediately after that fight, and I said that was the greatest lock of the week of all time. This might literally be the greatest finish of all time. Let me know if you can think of a better one. There's obviously been some spectacular finishes over the last 30-something years, but this might be the best one I have ever seen, especially once you factor in all the circumstances. The co-main event was another interesting fight. This was fun as well. Weili had her toughest fight. And not the toughest fight ever, because she's literally lost fights, but this was the toughest fight for her in the division. I thought Xiaonan was going to get lit up. I thought Jan was going to get taken down at will. I thought Jan was going to get ragdolled. I thought the striking would be about even, but that is not what happened. Xiaonan was the better striker. Xiaonan dropped Weili in every single round. Dropped her. Genuinely dropped her in every single round. She also won a couple of those grappling exchanges. She also was unconscious at the end of the first. And it was a very bizarre moment where Xiaonan was winning the striking exchanges early in the first round. Weili said, I'm done with this, took Jan to the ground, got her back, had the deepest rear naked choke I have ever seen. It was the deepest choke I'd ever seen, and she squeezed the hell out of it for about 15 seconds. And Jan was out. And then the time was up, and Weili did another little squeeze and held on for an extra second. The buzzer had already gone off. They separate them, and Jan is like, doesn't know where she is, was clearly unconscious and limp, and then just works her way back up, stumbling around, looking around. Jason Herzog, the referee, says, you're good, you're fine. She clearly was not fine. But they let her continue. They let her get to her corner. And that's where the controversy started. We didn't see anything on camera, but all of a sudden we had DC and Joe Rogan not understanding the rules, not understanding what they saw. And DC made a comment like, well, I think they gave Xiaonan some smelling salt because somebody said, you want me to wake her up? And the corner said yes. And all of a sudden she smelled something as she was awake. I don't know. I am filming this immediately after the fights. So I don't know if we have some more information about that. Let me know in the comments and hopefully you can update me. But there was a debate between Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier as to what just happened. Is she allowed to have smelling salts? Is that available by the commission? Is that legal? Is that illegal? I don't know. It ultimately didn't end up mattering because then Weili continued to get dropped round after round, but also continued to move forward and continued to get the takedowns and have the success. The takedowns were the differentiator. What you're looking at here is the gap on the ground. There was a big gap on the feet where Jan was the better striker, but there was also a big gap on the ground where once Weili got it there, she did the real damage. She stayed busy. She was the one pushing the pace and working to finish these fights. So Weili earned that belt. Weili defended her title. And Xiaonan looked almost better than she has ever looked. Obviously, it's a loss, but the power was there. A couple of the grappling exchanges were there, and the toughness was absolutely there, considering she was literally unconscious and then came back just to drop Weili in the next round. And speaking about dropping, this fight was super fast. We didn't get very far in this fight at all. What we did get, though, was another spectacular finish. The finish to this fight was absolutely amazing. We had Alex Pereira knocking out Jamal Hill to defend his light heavyweight belt. What made this finish so spectacular was, yes, the knockout, but that's what we expect from Alex at this point. The expectations of this guy are so insanely high, how could he not win by knockout? No, what ended up happening is Jamal Hill kicked Alex Pereira in the cup. And then Herb Dean, the referee, comes in, literally called timeout, comes in, and Alex Pereira, without breaking eye contact with Jamal Hill, shoos Herb Dean away, plots forward, throws out a fake jab, looks like he's going to throw an overhand. Alex, the way he did this was absolutely spectacular. Looks like he's going to throw an overhand. He cocks back his right hand and then just sends a straight half uppercut left right to Jamal Hill. You can see his eyes are already facing the wrong direction before he's hit the ground, and that dude just falls like a bag of dirt. Alex Pereira jumps on top, hits him a few more times, and gets it done. That was an unbelievable finish for two reasons. One, the shooing of the, I don't need you, get away. I don't need you, I've got this. And then two, the way he did the knockout. Go back, I would show you the clip, but that gets taken down by the UFC every time. Go back and watch that fight. He's like, I don't even want to say fakes the right because he doesn't like twitch. He literally starts moving it and then still is just so fast with the left. He made it happen. Alex Pereira then called out heavyweight. He wants to move up. He wants to get it done. I do think that's a bad idea. I do think it's a bad idea. Tom Aspinall is insanely well-rounded and can wrestle, and he'll just take Alex Pereira down. That's just what'll happen. With that being said, UFC 300 lived up to the hype. I thought it was absolutely spectacular. And a couple of the bets didn't go our way, and they didn't go our way early. And that does tend to destroy your thoughts on a card. And I will say, I was feeling it. I was bummed out early. When Jalen Turner lost the way he lost, I was bummed out early. That was in the safety parlay. But then, I'm with my kids. We were at the daddy-daughter dance, and I started to feel a little better. Like, I can't be here sulking because some guy quit. Let me enjoy the moment. And then I would watch some of the fights with them on my phone, and we came back home and I started to watch the fights. And then I just started to enjoy the fights for what they were. And they were just fun, spectacular fights. Almost every single fight on this card was fun. 13 fights, almost every single one was fun. I love this card. I think it lived up to the hype. And guys, don't forget, I bought a $1,000 UFC 300 mystery box. If you want to check out what's in that box, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. I'm going to tell you to do that. I've never told you to do that before. because I will do an unboxing. I don't know when I'm going to get it, but whenever I do, we will open it together and we will see what the hell is in that thing. If you do want to support us and you want to get some stuff in return, become a premium member. Premium membership is going to give you picks, bets, round line leans, but also tools. One of those tools is the line movement tracker. It's going to give you the opening odds, the current odds, the win probability, and the line movement for every fighter on every card. You're also going to get detailed data, metrics, and analytics, 38 columns of information that you can use to find your spots while placing bets. You're going to get a DraftKings optimizer preloaded with the best DraftKings projections in the game, and you're going to get far more than just me. Myself, Jacob, Artem, and the artificial intelligence are all breaking down fights, giving you picks, bets, and more. Just go to WeWantPicks.com. It is only $10 a month, and we already have UFC Vegas 91 picks and bets up now.